Okay, did Jalen Hurts silence all of the doubters?
I mean, if this doesn't, then nothing could, right? Like if winning the Super Bowl against a team trying to be the greatest team ever from a dynasty standpoint, and playing brilliantly in the NFC Championship game, playing brilliantly in the Super Bowl after playing brilliantly in his last Super Bowl, doesn't silence the doubters or skeptics, then nothing will. Does this make everyone believe he's as good as your quarterback rankings from this morning, where you had him, I think, 4th in the league?
Yeah.
I don't think he's done that. I think that right now, if you took a poll, I think the highest he would finish on anyone's is 3rd, and I think he would finish in, for most people, 5, 6, or 7. I think that's
Because
where
Burrow,
it would be.
I had, just for the record, Greg, I had Mahomes still number 1 because I'm a Mahomes guy.
No, but you also have all these guys you're about to list winning Super Bowls before Mahomes wins one again. But go ahead.
We can do this. This is going to tune in tomorrow. Where we try to forecast the next 10 years, and Brew and I get mad at each other. I have the guys with hardware in the top 4. I have Mahomes 1, Lamar 2. He's got more hardware than Josh. Josh is 3. And then I have the Super Bowl MVP at 4. And I have Burrow at 5. Yeah. Although he was, I think, Offensive Player of the Year or Comeback Player of the Year. Comeback. He didn't win Offensive Player of the Year. But I think I don't know what the argument, other than hypotheticals, is that Joe Burrow is better than Jalen Hurts.
So that's I'm not trying to derail this conversation as well, which I did, my bad. The point I'm making is if not having him in the top 4 means you're a doubter, then no, he hasn't. Not you.
But I think that is. I think at some point the Super Bowl. I mean, it's him, Stafford, and Mahomes are the only guys.
Right, but you have so Stafford gets jumped by Burrow because I don't
know why.
But they're your rankings.
Why? I have Stafford's arm. Greg, where?
I don't think he's going to ever silence all the doubters. Well, I shouldn't say ever, but I don't think this has silenced all the doubters. And the reason why I don't believe it has is because of the style of which they won it. Like, did he throw good? Did he play well? Absolutely. But when you look at the season in its entirety, did he carry his team? No. When you look at these other quarterbacks, it's everything. We're gonna start. When you have success, now we have to start analyzing your play and comparing you. We have to nitpick every little thing now because we're looking at Patrick Mahomes and how he does it. We're looking at Joe Burrow, how he does it, Lamar, how he does it, obviously Josh Allen. And the idea is that, well, they kind of carry their team. Even with Josh and Lamar and Joe not won it, we still kind of feel like, well, with all except you, they still carry their team. The engine of their team is that guy.
Yeah.
We don't look at Jalen Hurts in that manner. Now, that doesn't mean he can't do it moving forward, but he hasn't done it that way. And so I think if he's not going to do that, you kind of compare him to Russell Wilson. His numbers in the regular season are going to have to look drastically different moving forward. We're going to have to see more production. He can't continue to have these type of seasons where it's all about their running game, and yeah, he wins, but he just has the moment
so
that he
here's
needs.
Brew, I don't know. I think he can certainly keep having those types of seasons to stay in that 5 to 7 quarterback ranking.
No, yeah, absolutely. But he can't break that threshold.
Correct. That's the thing. I think that, and there's only 4 guys we look at as the definitive, quarterbacks that do that year in, year out. In Joe, Lamar, Josh.
Yeah, I'm with you guys. I mean, there is more nuance to it than just who won this championship. Like Chauncey Billups, who was a great player.
Watch him out.
Does the fact that he won a championship
and
mean he's better than Allen Iverson? I mean, I'm just like, we got to look at how they play throughout the regular season, the numbers they put. I guess you think he's better than Allen Iverson.
I'm just thinking about
it. But there's more to it than just who won the Super Bowl.
Yes.
I mean, that's just. And again, Greg hit it on the head. Jalen was great, and I think he was the MVP. but he doesn't carry his team like the top four that we have. Like,
you know, I mean, this is just hilarious though, because now they want to get into the nitpickiness of this all when it involves Jalen Hurts, but they don't do that with Patrick Mahomes. I mean, like, come on, man. I mean, seriously. And listen, I think Patrick Mahomes is a better quarterback than Jalen Hurts. So this is not me making a video about how Jalen Hurts is better. But they don't do that with Patrick Mahomes. They just say Patrick Mahomes carried, the Kansas City Chiefs last year through a Super Bowl. And they're like, that's not the case, man. That wasn't the case. They had the best defense. They were shutting teams down. That defense, put on a clinic against the Buffalo Bills. Put on a clinic against the Ravens. That 49ers offense was incredibly high powered. The two best offenses were the 49ers and the Ravens. And the Kansas City Chiefs defense completely slowed them down. So you think that benefited them? And again, Andy Reid, Spags, we've already been through all that. But then now with Andy Reid, it's like, well, he's not. What about his regular season stats? Again, Patrick Mahomes' regular season stats for the last 2 years have been completely average. And yet, if the Kansas City Chiefs won this Super Bowl, let's say Jalen Hurts just played bad, and the Kansas City Chiefs defense was awesome, and it was a sloppy, ugly game, and the Kansas City Chiefs win, 21-10, and Patrick Mahomes throws for 180 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception or something, people would have said he three-peated. He's the GOAT. He's amazing. They wouldn't have said, yeah, well, the defense played great. Jalen Hurts was awful. I mean, do they hold it against Patrick Mahomes that he beat Jimmy Garoppolo in the Super Bowl? No? Second-year head coach Nick Sirianni and second-year full-time starter in Jalen Hurts? You use that against him, they beat him, and then again, if the Chiefs beat the Eagles and Jalen Hurts played bad, then you would say, well, Jalen Hurts isn't a good quarterback, so now he beat another bad quarterback. But now with Jalen Hurts winning, it's just like, let's really, magnify. And again, to be fair, I think that should be done, but just do it for everyone. Do it for everyone. And this is what I said, and I used to say this to a lot of Jared Goff fans, and Brock Purdy fans, that a lot of people doubt your quarterback because of how great your teams are. And now Jalen Hurts proved to be better than Jared Goff and Brock Purdy because he balled out in the biggest moments. And he did put that team on his back. Yeah, that defense was playing unbelievable, but he put that offense on his back. Make no mistake about it. He wasn't throwing little 3-yard passes to A.J. Brown, who then ripped off for 20 yards. Patrick Mahomes did that in the Houston Texans game, throwing little dink and dunk passes to Travis Kelce, who then rips off massive runs. I already went through the yak and all of that. I mean, like that wasn't the Philadelphia Eagles offense here. So Jalen Hurts was making these throws. Jalen Hurts was making these plays with his legs. Jalen Hurts was avoiding the pressure, the sacks, making throws on the run, picking up gains with his legs, big gains, 20-yard gains, compared to what Patrick Mahomes was doing in that Super Bowl where he was getting tied up and tackled and getting tripped up. There was times where he could have broke through and he didn't. He wasn't good enough. Jalen Hurts was. When Patrick Mahomes was making throws on the run, he threw pick sixes. Jalen Hurts was moving the chains, throwing 22-yard passes to a running back, Saquon Barkley. Like that's the difference, man. That's the difference. So yeah, Jalen Hurts gets a ton of credit. I get it. Jalen Hurts week in and week out is not putting this team on his back. But Joe Burrow did, and they didn't make the playoffs. Lamar Jackson didn't put the Baltimore Ravens on his back. He had Derrick Henry. Any game where Derrick Henry didn't rush for like 90 or more yards, they lost. Every single game that they lost, Derrick Henry had like 85 or less yards. Something right around that number. And it's not one of those cooked book stats where it's like, well, of course, if you're down, then you run less. No, it wasn't like that type of situation at all. You're talking about a couple of these like close games. It was just that's how the offense was run. And yet now here Jalen Hurts has won multiple times with Saquon Barkley not being able to get his big-time numbers. Not to mention, sometimes Saquon Barkley didn't really get going into that second half, and yet Jalen Hurts still had that offense with the lead. Now, again, that defense is great, but it's complimentary football, man. It's complimentary football. Now, if Jalen Hurts was in the conversation, this is what I always say. If Jalen Hurts was in the conversation for GOAT status, if we were trying to be like, is Jalen Hurts better than Tom Brady? Then I would totally understand. Let's absolutely nitpick him to the core. Let's start comparing his yak. Let's start comparing the weapons that he has. Let's start comparing, let's do all of that. I'm all for that. But also, like, Jalen Hurts, we already know this, has had a new offensive coordinator. He's going to have another one now. Like, every single year for the last, decade of his football life, since high school. I mean, that's crazy. That is truly crazy. That is not easy, man. That is not easy. And he also now, you want to say that he's not carrying his team, but it's just I don't even know what that means anymore at this point in this context when you have a really good team. Because again, Patrick Mahomes has had really good teams with awesome coaching. Now, you're right. Sometimes Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen have to carry their team, undeniably. And I agree with that. And I've said that so many times. The Buffalo Bills do not build a team around Josh Allen like the Philadelphia Eagles have for Jalen Hurts. But Jalen Hurts shouldn't be penalized for that necessarily in the way where he still won. He won the Super Bowl. Now, if Josh Allen was able to carry the Buffalo Bills and win a Super Bowl, then yeah, that's impressive. And again, I think Josh Allen is an absolute monster and an absolute beast. So he's kind of like a perfect example for me to compare in this moment. And that would be that. Then if Josh Allen won a Super Bowl, I'd be like, you know what? It's more impressive that Josh Allen won the Super Bowl than Jalen Hurts did because he did it with less. And I would say that that's wildly impressive. And he did it with kind of a good, OC and a good defensive head coach. Not legendary like Andy Reid and Spags. But Jalen Hurts rose to the occasion. Josh Allen didn't. Lamar Jackson didn't. Joe Burrow was in the Super Bowl. And he could not get it done. He could not get it done. And Jalen Hurts is not getting enough credit for that. Because again, you talk about Joe Burrow. And again, Joe Burrow is a beast. That's why I'm not drawn to these conversations, honestly. Because I don't need to figure out who's better, Joe Burrow or Jalen Hurts. It's honestly not that important. But but again, if we're going to have the conversation, let's have the conversation. We can see that Jalen Hurts played better in both Super Bowls against the Kansas City Chiefs, the dynasty of the Kansas City Chiefs. He played better than Joe Burrow did in that Super Bowl. That was a winnable Super Bowl. Joe Burrow did not rise to the occasion. And yeah, he didn't have a great O-line. I get it. Jalen Hurts had no run game at all. And his defense against the Kansas City Chiefs in 22 were giving up. They gave up, 36 points, I think. I forget the final, 36, 33, or 35, 32, whatever the heck it was. A lot of points, 30-plus points. I mean, he did put the Philadelphia Eagles on his back. He did carry the Philadelphia Eagles in the Super Bowl, in 22 especially. He put that team on his back. So you're going to penalize Jalen Hurts for not putting his team on his back during the regular season because they have Saquon Barkley and A.J. Brown and a good defense? What? How does that make sense? And again, I get it. That's why, I'm not trying to argue that you should be putting Jalen Hurts above all these guys. Because again, I do believe that the Philadelphia Eagles and Jalen Hurts, or just that the Philadelphia Eagles have just built a better team. They've built a better team than the Ravens. They built a better team than the Bengals. They built a better team, than all of these teams, quite frankly. They just have. That's why they won the Super Bowl. Right, they did not win the Super Bowl because Jalen Hurts just carried this team from week 1 onward. But to act like Jalen Hurts wasn't a massive contributor, that's where I kind of draw that. That's where these conversations, the way they have them, it starts to slip into that. Where it's kind of like, yeah, his numbers got to be much bigger throughout the regular season. Why? Why? The dude gets the job done, and then in the biggest game in sports, in all of sports, 2 Super Bowls, he plays unbelievable. He plays literally better than Patrick Mahomes. He's outdueled Patrick Mahomes twice. Jalen Hurts was that offense in that Super Bowl. They could not rely on big chunk plays from Saquon Barkley. It was not there. So all the pressure was on Jalen Hurts, and Jalen Hurts was not just throwing to wide open guys. He just wasn't. He had like 2 wide open passes the whole game. He was not throwing these little screen passes that then go off for 25 yards. He wasn't throwing open, down the field, a 30-yard pass to a wide open A.J. Brown. Like, that's not how that game went. He wasn't sitting all day in a clean pocket. Yeah, that O-line did great, but there was plenty of times that he was flushed out, that he was forced to run himself, that he was forced to throw on the run. And he succeeded. He succeeded. Patrick Mahomes didn't. Joe Burrow didn't. Lamar Jackson didn't. Josh Allen didn't. And yeah, take away A.J. Brown, take away Saquon Barkley, take away Jalen Carter. Yeah, the Philadelphia Eagles don't win the Super Bowl. You're right. They don't win the Super Bowl. So take away Chris Jones from Patrick Mahomes. Take away Spags. Take away Andy Reid. I mean, we got to play that game then. We got to break this myth that these quarterbacks are winning with no one. Because it's just not happening. I'll be honest. Out of all these teams in the NFL, it actually really feels like Josh Allen carries the most. And I think when you actually watch the games, you can see it. But he hasn't won. And I don't hold his feet to the fire for that. I give him credit for having to carry that workload season after season after season, game after game after game, drive after drive after drive. But I'm not going to punish Jalen Hurts for being big in big time moments in the Super Bowl. Because people like Nick and Brew and all of them, they said, there's these issues with Lamar Jackson in the big games. And Lamar Jackson hasn't won 100%. I mean, again, he hasn't even been to a Super Bowl. They didn't even beat the Buffalo Bills. And the Buffalo Bills couldn't even beat the Kansas City Chiefs. And the Baltimore Ravens couldn't even beat the Kansas City Chiefs in week 1. And they had the best offense in the NFL, technically, I think. And yet, even when their defense did pretty good enough, they still couldn't win. Their defense played good enough, right? The defense gave up 40 points or something, right? And it was such a huge deficit that they had to overcome. So in a lot of ways, you could argue it's indefensible for them not to get the job done. But this is where it's always so tricky, because it depends on what lens you want to look at it through. If you look at it through the team lens, you're like, well, the team wasn't good enough. Or you could potentially blame the quarterback. And then if you're looking at it through the quarterback lens, you're like, well, the team wasn't good enough. Mark Andrews dropped that ball. Zay Flowers was injured. A.J. Brown was injured. Devontae was injured. But again, when A.J. Brown was injured and Devontae was injured, was the Philadelphia Eagles this dominant force? No. But did Jalen Hurts keep them afloat? He did. The one game got out of control, the Buccaneers game, where he had nobody. Missing multiple O-line. Missing A.J. Brown, Devontae. I'm not sure if Dallas Goedert was there. He might have been missing too. And it was 106-degree weather. It's like, what do you want him to do in that situation? He led the Philadelphia Eagles to the playoffs when it was just Devontae. No big running back. I think it was Miles Sanders at that time, if memory serves me correctly. So it's just I don't know. And I just think it's because Jalen Hurts is like the way he moves. It's like kind of like rigidy. And when he runs, it's not lightning quick like Lamar. He doesn't explode. He doesn't barrel through people like Josh Allen. And he doesn't throw a deep ball that looks like Joe Burrow. And he is not having games where he's throwing for like 45 times, where he's got 4 touchdowns and 380 yards. And when we put that all together, it's like, well, Jalen Hurts is just not that good. But then we see him special in Super Bowls, the most important game in the NFL. And he's now 2 for 2 in all, playing awesome in Super Bowls. And we want to say, yeah, but he's not carrying the team. And it's like, that's why sometimes these conversations, I'm just kind of like, it's fun to do the rankings and the mountains and stuff like that. And I'm prepared to have these conversations as the spring and summer goes on because there's nothing else to talk about. I'm going to try my best to try to figure out how to like have these conversations in a potentially more fruitful and productive way. But it is tough that going into this game, I think part of the resistance is that I'm just a little burned out because going into these playoffs, going into the playoffs and then going into the Super Bowl especially, and it was, each week it was, can Jalen Hurts get the job done? Can Jalen Hurts get the job done? Can Jalen Hurts get the job done? And then he continues to get the job done, whether it be because he has to manage the game, which he did in the Packers, whether it's because he needed a couple huge plays, which he did against the Rams, and he needed to run that offense, setting Saquon Barkley up for massive runs, or was it because he needed to pass the ball and make some big, big plays, which he did against the Washington Commanders, which he obviously did against the Kansas City Chiefs in the Super Bowl, where they said, we're going to take away the run game because we don't believe you, Jalen Hurts, can lead this offense to victory. And then Jalen Hurts does that very thing, and we say we're not going to give him the credit for it because you want to see him put up bigger numbers against the Carolina Panthers in Week 7? Huh? Like, I don't know what to do with that. And again, he wins the Super Bowl, and now we still have we still doubt. We still have the question. And that's why my answer is, did Jalen silence doubters with the Super Bowl win? And no. But the reality is that, like, everyone has doubters. People doubt Patrick Mahomes. People doubt Josh Allen. People doubt Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow. They doubt every single quarterback. They just do. Except for the individual fan bases. The Mahomes fans, no doubts. The Josh Allen fans, no doubts. The, Lamar Jackson fans, no doubts. The media, doubts. And when they're really supportive, 100% supportive of an individual quarterback, feels like there's ulterior motives. Feels like there's some fandom going on. And Nick Wright's obviously the perfect example of that. And that's not even a dig at Nick. It's just, he's self-proclaimed. But it seems like it's a little self-serving. So, I don't know. I am curious to see how this conversation unfolds, but I imagine it'll be the same thing as it is. I think Jalen Hurts will be kind of high in this offseason, and then people will kind of bring him down, and anything short of the Philadelphia Eagles starting off 14-0 or something, and Jalen Hurts balling, they'll do the same thing. What's wrong with this offense? Is this sustainable way of winning? Etc. It'll be the same thing. And then if the Eagles don't win the Super Bowl again, it's like, aha, see, he's not good enough. And it's like, right, because he's got to win the next 7 Super Bowls in a row, because it's it's such an easy thing to do, and it's just becomes cyclical. And to me, it's just a little bit of a bummer to start that cycle the day after the dude literally balled out in a Super Bowl against the Kansas City Chiefs, stopped them from three-peating, outdueled Patrick Mahomes for the second time, and is now a Super Bowl MVP. It's just like, come on, man. We should be saying nothing but positive things about Jalen Hurts. Nothing but positive things about Jalen Hurts right now. It's like, are you serious? Could you imagine winning the Super Bowl, winning the MVP, after everyone doubted you, and people said, he needs to put up better numbers during the regular season next season? It's like, as you're holding the Lombardi and the MVP trophy, you're like, what? You're like, did they just say that? Like, what? What? That's just crazy. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about Jalen Hurts? Do you think he silenced the doubters with the Super Bowl win? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions, let's get in some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We're building an amazing community here, and I absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.